Hey everyone, just before this one begins, whenever I speak, you are going to hear a fan that I had in the background going. It was a very, very, very hot week here in Australia. So unfortunately, that's just something I had to deal with to get some videos out. But when I'm not talking, I have gone through and I have edited out all of the sound so you can't hear it. But yeah, just keep that in mind. Thanks. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Griever Productions. We got a big one here today. So, a lot of people have mentioned that Dan Vasc does a version of Nessun Dorma to me, and this is one of those songs that in the classical world gets covered all the time, right? Everyone does it. Everyone has a version of it. And obviously Dan is a more rock vocalist, right? What I wanted to do with this one is do a comparison video, however, with a whole heap of different versions that I've found over the course of my time in classical music and oh, actually, you know what, really just in music in general. And it seems that the comparison videos that we do tend to go pretty well. Like, people seem to be like interacting with them a fair bit. So I wanted to see what people kind of thought of these performances. Now, we do have 5 different versions here. Actually, and I'm going to add a 6th. Hang on a minute. So, what I want to do is I want to kind of go through this song and go through some different versions that people have done in the past, right? Starting with Luciano Pavarotti, you know, the one that everybody knows. The one that, you know, when you think of Nessun Dorma, he's the one that you usually think of first, right? So we're going to go through his first. Then we're going to go through Andrea Bocelli. And once we go through those, which are the more kind of standard classical vocalists to do the song, we're going to venture away from it a little bit. So what we're going to do then is we're going to go through and listen to David Phelps, who we have listened on the channel before do Oh Holy Night and did a phenomenal job. And then we're going to go through a version that I enjoy. It's from an album called the True Symphony Rockestra, which involved a few very, very good vocalists. Well, songs that you would know as classical music, right? And made them rocked up. Then we're going to have a look at Dan's, and we're going to follow it up with Adam Lambert with Queen singing Nessun Dorma. So before we begin, this one is going to be a long one, so please do make sure that you have a drink ready or, you know, get yourself a snack, that sort of thing. And please do leave a like on the video. It really does help. But for now, without any further ado, let's get into Luciano Pavarotti's version of Nessun Dorma. Insane, right? So what I want to point out at this point, when he was singing those high notes, da, 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 I cheated and did him in mixed voice, but the amount of core pressure that is going on in this this section of his body there is insane. The amount of pressure you need to put on in order to hold those notes that cleanly. Oh God, it's why he is known as the master, the absolute master of this. Crazy vocal. That man is and always will be the one deemed as like the master of that song. That is basically why people look at this song and go, that's Luciano Pavarotti's song, because it is so impactful when he does it, like especially in those high notes. Vincentum. It's just beautiful, man. Like, I can't even explain it. It just, every time he hits that note, it just gives me chills. Absolute chills. So let's move on now to Andrea Bocelli, which is going to be interesting because I haven't actually... I know Andrea's stuff. I've listened to a lot of it, like obviously The Prayer with Celine Dion, actually, and a plethora of other people as well. But I haven't heard... I can't recall if I've heard him do Nessun Dorma. So this will be new for me as well. Let's have a listen. Beautiful. Now, I just want to point out too, his technique is also impeccable. It's interesting to hear his voice do this, as it he is also a tenor, but these notes don't fall into his range as effortlessly, I'll say, as Pavarotti's. But his technique is what is getting him there, and it's still beautiful. I don't want that to sound like I'm bagging this performance by any stretch of the imagination, right? Beautiful. It's stunning, right? And keeping in mind as well, this and the previous were done live. They were done live. Like it's to have that near perfection in what are artists that basically, well, one never got the chance to use auto-tune and the other doesn't like it. You know, like the other will not use it because he doesn't need it. Like Bocelli doesn't need it. His pitch is just is stunning, right? It's just food for thought. There's a lot of people that, you know, I feel like this sort of music, this sort of style is lost, or is being lost, and I feel like it needs to make a comeback. I always find it so funny when there is such a huge choir and they're pulled back so far in the mix that it sounds like only like 3 or 4 people singing. So here's the thing, right? And here's something that needs to be pointed out, especially when we're getting into 4 more versions, sorry, that are a little bit different, you know, people that I haven't heard. The super important thing, right? Especially when hitting that note. It's one thing to hit that vincero. It's one thing to hit it. It's another thing entirely to have that vibrato stay even and create that beauty of that note. He did that beautifully. That was absolutely stunning. And that's something I'm going to be listening for the rest of them as well, because that is super important. That song is beautiful the whole way through, but if you stuff that last note, not that last note, but that high note in there, the whole thing just, you may as well not have done the song at all. And it's beautiful to hear it done properly. So I'm keen to see how these are done differently. So Next, moving on to David Phelps. David Phelps, we know that he has that classical background. Has a gorgeous voice, like absolutely insanely good voice. So let's see how he does here.
Nessun dorma, nessun dorma. Tu pure, o principessa, nella tua fredda stanza, guardi le stelle che tremano d'amore e di speranza.
Okay. Sorry, before we go any further here, he is definitely approaching this with a more contemporary style. There is the classical technique being used, of course, with the way that he is breathing, but he has come at it with a more contemporary style, and I hope that he builds on it, because he did start rather pulled back, which is not a bad thing, not by any means. It is an emotive choice, right? Which is something that I'm huge on. I love a good emotive choice. So I'm keen to see how he does the rest.
Ma il mio mistero è chiuso in me.
Oh, that run.
Il nome mio nessun saprà. No, no, sulla tua bocca lo dirò. Quando la luce splenderà. Ed il mio bacio scioglierà il silenzio che ti fa mia. No, no, dilego a notte tramontate stelle, tramontate stelle, all'alba vincerò, vincerò.
Okay. All right. How do I put this nicely? See, the initial trills that he did, the additional trills, I thought they were really lovely. And I thought that it was well placed, and then it got overused. And for me, personally, it felt like just a course of vocal gymnastics, when that's not where the beauty of this song lies. Not to say that it was a bad performance, it absolutely wasn't. It was great. It was really good. I just didn't think that it fit. And the way that he attacked that higher note, doing it in what was essentially falsetto or head voice rather than in the belt, he did what he needed to do, and he got the note. He definitely got the note. I'm just not as convinced on that one as I was kind of hoping that I would be, if that makes sense. I feel like that's the first remotely... I think that's the first time that I've expressed disappointment. And it's not even disappointment to say that it was bad. It wasn't. It was just a personal preference more than anything. And I do hope people take it as that. That's a personal thing in my own brain. But anyway, moving on. So we're going to go to this one here. Now, there's no actual video of them doing this live. This is just the recording. Which I've heard this before. I haven't heard it in a long time, but I have heard it before. And LaBrie attacks this very differently. Very, very, very differently. The vocal style is very much along his line of rock vocal. I believe one of the other gentlemen singing this one with him, I don't know who actually does this one, but the True Symphonic Rockestra is definitely an interesting one to have a listen to if you haven't before. Like, they do songs like Nessun, Dorma, the song Memories from Cats is in there as well. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there that's actually really interesting to hear done in a different style. Is any of it like S tier? Maybe not, right? It depends on people's personal preference, but I thoroughly enjoy it as far as a musical exercise. So let's have a listen to LaBrie singing Nessun Dorma.
Nessun dorma, nessun dorma. Tu puro principessa, nella tua fredda stanza, goditi la stella che tramano d'amore e di speranza. Ma il mio mistero è chiuso in me, il nome mio nessun saprà, no, no, sulla tua bocca lo dirò, quando la luce splenderà. Bacio scioglierà il silenzio che ti fa mia. Il nome suo nessun saprà, e mai dovrei ahimè morir, dire tua morte trappate stelle, tramontate stelle, all'alba vincerò, vincerò,
So yeah, an interesting an interesting musical exercise, basically, with that one. Because as you can hear, LaBrie did it a very different style. I don't know who the other gentleman was of the other vocalists, but they were obviously more along that classical style, right? It fell more naturally into their style. And LaBrie's high note there goes very much against what I was saying, where you've got to get that vibrato perfectly, right? But I'm not mad about it, because it's like, this is his style. He did it very much in his style, right? He wasn't doing it as a classical vocalist. He was doing it as his prog metal vocalist, right? And that's fine. I think that's totally fine. Now, so next up, what we're going to do is we're going to listen to this. Now, when I was getting these together, right, these videos together, I did not realize that Adam Lambert had done this at all, to be honest, and it was with Queen, of all bands, and this seems to be the one that I can find that has the best sound quality to it. The rest of them seem really crap, if I'm honest. So I'm interested to hear how Adam does it, because we know, well, I mean, those who do know Adam Lambert's voice, his voice is crazy. Like, it is in, it's up in the rafters. It is one of those really awesome hard rock vocals. I've often said that while no one will ever match Freddie, he is the closest that we will ever get to Freddie. Like, throughout all of the world, I feel like he is the closest thing we will ever get to Freddie, both in showmanship and in vocal capability, right? Because no one can really match with Freddie. And in order to do Freddie stuff, like we even saw with the Forestella video, they took Bohemian Rhapsody and did it different, like completely different, because they knew they weren't going to beat him at his own game. They needed to change it, and it was one of the most beautiful and emotive things that I've ever seen. I literally cried in that video. So let's have a listen and see how Adam Lambert goes with this song.
Dati la nostra canzone.
Nella tua fredda stanza
Well, I wasn't expecting that. Look, I was expecting Adam to very much take the same sort of route that LaBrie did in changing it to suit himself. But what Adam did there was show that that man knows. He knows classical music. He knows the techniques and is just a freak at what he does. Honestly, vocally, I can't fault that man in any way, shape, or form. Like, I mean, look, at the beginning of that, I was kind of relieved when the initial guitar chord came in, because there were a couple of points where, when he was singing a cappella, that I think were flat. I think they were, but I could be wrong. But then when the music came in, he was able to correct himself, and it was brilliant, right? But God, man, there's nothing he can't do vocally, and I'm jealous of the man. Seriously, he can do no wrong, and it's beautiful. I love it, love it, love it, love his voice. Good Lord. Anyway, so we're going to move on now to the last one here. Oh wow, we've been recording for about 30 minutes. So yeah, this one has been a long one. So let's get into this, right? Dan Vasc, right? We know him, we love him on this channel, absolutely. This is going to be very different, I believe. I don't know if he's going to do this as a standard cover, or if he's going to rock it up a little bit. But I don't care. Let's get into it. Oh.
Nessun dorma, nessun dorma. Tu pure principessa nella tua fredda stanza, guardi le stelle che tremano d'amore e di speranza. Ma il mio mistero è chiuso in me. Il nome mio nessun saprà, no, no, sulla tua bocca.
See here how he's like visibly shaking? That's core pressure. That's core pressure.
Quando la luce splenderà ed il mio bacio scioglierà il silenzio che ti fa mia. Ti levate tramontaggi stelle all'alba vincerò, vincerò, vincerò.
I was going to have a lot to say. I do have a lot to say. First of all, well done. Well done. Look, he did that as him. He did that as him. I needed to point out that core pressure thing, because that is like the pressure he had on his like at that point. That was crazy. Like, you can see it. You can see it in people. There are some that like, because here's the thing with the style of music that he does and the way that he sings. Usually, I don't believe he would have needed to use that much core pressure in anything else that he has sung. But he did it in this case to get that power behind the Vincero to get into that spot, right? And, oh man, I cannot fault what he has done. If he said, hey, what would you get me to do in order to make it more classical, I would have a list of things. Like a relatively big list of things, right? But I don't care about that list because he unapologetically did it as himself. And that's what we care about. And he did all of the stuff that I mentioned before. How, that high note, you've got to have that good vibrato. There was a point in there where he trilled on the high note, which in the mix kind of got lost a little bit. I would have put that up in the mix a little bit because I couldn't quite hear what the trill was. But that's not a him problem. That's a mix problem. I loved that. I loved that. I thought that was sensational. Truly sensational. That man is insanely talented, and we know that here. And dare I say it, if I was to listen to any of these ones again, right? Because let's face it, I've listened to Pavarotti's version to death. I've listened to his version to absolute death. Andrea Bocelli's was beautiful. I love his voice. He is a true master of the art. David Phelps, his version, it has its own beauty. Is it my favorite? Absolutely not. It is great. It is great. It's not my favorite of these. As I mentioned about the version with James LaBrie, it is an exercise in what can be done with music. I adore his voice no matter what he does. Is it my favorite version of the song? No. Absolutely not. Adam Lambert. Now, he surprised me with this because I expected a little bit more along the line of Dan, where unapologetically himself, right? But Adam, not like that at all. Adam did it like a classical singer would, and blew my socks off, right? Dan's was the most surprising to me because I was fully expecting just a rocked version of it. The reason that I brought LaBrie's version into this, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, the reason that I brought in LaBrie's version of this is because I expected that it was going to be more along the same line, that it was going to be rocked up, that it was going to be, a very different style. And I was wrong. I was entirely wrong. And I am so okay to mention that I was insanely wrong. He came at this as a classical, in more of a classical style, and he did it brilliantly. Wow. Just wow. Seriously. All of these artists have something incredibly beautiful to give. Absolutely all of them. And I would recommend going through and having a listen for yourself and try and pick which one you like the most. Leave in the comment. Leave a comment actually. Leave a comment as to which one was your favorite. I can't give you a favorite. Like, I can't tell you what my favorite was. So anyway, wow, 42-minute video. Let's leave that one there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like a favorite if you enjoyed, subscribe, do all that sort of thing. And I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.